So there is that kind of an enticement at the start. But I feel like what took me out of that role is just to experience for myself what it was like in a rehab setting, and being lucky to experience for myself what it's like to see the power of exercise, of active rehab. And then that's what made me change my mind. So I would say if anyone's listening that's still like deciding, I'd say reach out and experience it for yourself to see what because there's nothing that beats that lived experience of, okay, this is actually what it's like in a sports team.
Welcome to XPhys Biz with me, Aaron King, a podcast for exercise physiologists and health professionals wanting to grow and scale in business. Welcome to XPhys Biz with me, Aaron King, and I've got Daniel Arbilla from Arbilla Exercise Physiology with us today. So we're going to have a bit of a chat about a few things about his journey, where he's at the moment, and also ask him how he confronted some of the biases around going from uni, coming out as an evidence-based practitioner, and then how he's going with all of that at the moment. So Daniel, do you want to give yourself a bit of a more detailed intro than what I...
Absolutely. Mate, first of all, pleasure being here. I've been listening intently to the podcast and loving the work so far. So it's an honor, and also feel a bit funny talking on behalf of a business owner. Like looking back, I didn't think I was ever going to enter the world of business. Kind of got thrown in a little bit. But in terms of my background story, I started in shows my age now, 2010, exercise science. And
I've still got at least a decade on you, so don't worry.
I'll be mindful of who I'm speaking with right now. But
that's fine.
The initial kind of direction I was heading towards was sports science and trying to work with elite sports teams, specifically soccer. So I was obsessed with Cristiano Ronaldo and following him everywhere. I'm I want to work with high-end athletes. Then there was an opportunity in Sydney Uni towards the end of the degree to do a direct transfer, an internal transfer into exercise physiology. And I had no clue. Can I swear, by the way? I should have asked.
Sure.
Yeah. So no fucking clue what the hell an EP was, and fell in love with it. So I did a few placements in an aged care gym facility, and just the difference that you can make in people's lives was next to none. And I was much more enticed to help people in rehab settings in more of a medical kind of using exercise as medicine rather than kind of trying to shave off 0.001 seconds off an athlete's 100-meter sprint. So it was a lot more meaningful to me. And so I graduated 2014. I went back to uni to do a bit more studies. I felt like I wasn't ready for the full-time adult responsibilities. So I did.
Just for those listening, nobody ever is. I don't even know when I'm going to feel like an adult, and I've just turned 40. So it's okay. I don't know when you feel like you're an adult because I'm not even there yet.
Yeah. Thank you. That makes me feel better. Yes, I did a Bachelor of Arts majoring in psychology and a bit of sociology and languages. I ended up finishing that up, wrapping that up around 2017. I still feel like some of the skills were transferable, particularly with the social psychology stuff. I would kind of in the business of behavior change and seeing why people behave the way they do, and entered into the world, was in a commercial gym, was in a private practice doing some casual contract positions. I felt a bit out of place in each of them, and heard your story, Aaron, and keen to share the gym space was a fascinating kind of industry, fitness industry, where I wasn't really roided up enough to join the family of personal trainers, but felt like a overqualified personal trainer in the physio rehab setting and the context. So trying to figure out through this process of what the hell I wanted to do and how I wanted to practice. I think there's a positive there in the flexibility that we have as EPs, where there are less expectations than in other professions. So I kind of used that and just learned everything and saw, okay, there's a bit more evidence going towards this way. Let me just follow and adapt and be flexible rather than getting stuck in the ideas and the kind of treatments that I thought I was going to be. So I was less kind of fused to certain modalities and interventions. And I think that's a positive and a privilege that we have as E's in this space. Moving on from there, I was a full-time EP in a clinical position for a couple of years. Really enjoyed my time. I was provided a lot of autonomy, learnt a lot. And there was a period of time known as COVID that happened. During this time, there were some changes going along where the direction of the business was going in a kind of different direction to where I wanted and where my learning and growth was going. So parted ways amicably and ended up landing a role where I am right here, right now, in a studio in the city, Sydney City, renting a space 2 days a week. Very lucky to be working with full autonomy with an awesome boss. I don't know, call him my boss. He's just a colleague or like a landlord and a friend now.
I'm not a fan of that word.
Yes.
I'm not a fan of that word either.
Yeah. So
it has that negative connotation along with it that, a boss and you're telling everyone what to do without some autonomy as an adult. I think everyone should just be, you're an adult, you're qualified, you should be treated as such. And, I don't have the time to micromanage. Like, I've got too many things in my brain that's hard enough, let alone micromanaging. And obviously it's not a lot of people's style nowadays anyway, but yeah, I'm not a fan of that word either. So that's fine.
Exactly. Yeah. Very lucky to have full kind of autonomy where I am. So I'm working mobile 3 days, and then I'm at this place, private studio with full decked out gym in a little spot that was a psychology kind of office and turned into a barbell psychology office. So that's like the clinical story. And I should also mention the other job I have as a mentor and facilitator with the Knowledge Exchange, where we run courses, and I run the podcast as well, the Knowledge Exchange. And that is also a part of my own business, and I work together with them and learning and growing and really humbled by the team that I have around me. So yeah, those would be my baseline kind of roles and journeys.
Yeah, to go back to something you said before, because I think it's something that a lot of people going into sports science initially want to do. They see the glory of working with elite athletes and they want to do that, or something that I wanted to do and everybody wanted to do. And then they realize you actually really poor hours, no pay, if at all, even though they're elite sporting organizations and they have a lot of funds for the players and other people, they don't have much, and they don't treat necessarily the sports scientists with the respect that they deserve. And I'm pretty sure it's under minimum wage, a lot of the things that we've seen advertised for, even some of the NRL clubs and that have advertised a few things to get in, but people do it because they're like, oh, look, I want to get my foot in the door. And I guess the clubs know that's what people do, so they take advantage of that. So I know that story is common, that they go into it and realizing that, the bread and butter of an EP is not elite sport. It is, some form of rehab clinic, working independently, working in a gym. There's a lot of different pathways, and I've gone through all of those, probably except at the elite sport, and you've gone through a few of those as well.
That's right. Yes. And I think there's a lot of glamour and hype attached to working with, people you look up to, celebrities, sports stars. So there is that kind of an enticement at the start. But I feel like what took me out of that role is just to experience for myself what it was like in a rehab setting, and being lucky to experience for myself what it's like to see the power of exercise, of active rehab. And then that's what made me change my mind. So I would say if anyone's listening that's still like deciding, I'd say reach out and experience it for yourself to see what because there's nothing that beats that lived experience of, okay, this is actually what it's like in a sports team. And I don't really enjoy it as much as I thought I did. So.
And some people do love it and do want to go down that path. So I don't want to shy people away from the people that really do want to join that field. I believe that I read somewhere a little while ago that you considered doing, post-grad in physio or some other form of allied health because you weren't sure about how EP was going to work for you. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, you did.
A while ago? Didn't you go down that path? And the reason why I asked, because I know that a lot of the reason I consider it myself is people don't really know what an EP is. Do I need to do something else to get more known and just to have that extra diagnostic ability or some other form of something after my name that people know? And this was 10, 15 years ago. And I do think it's changing, but it still probably needs to change a bit more to be on parity in many areas.
Absolutely. There's something about the brand, the recognition of the term physio, that an EP, it's just a different kind of historical context behind. I talked to a few new grads, and there's a few reasons for doing physio. I think there's some, first of all, super valid and understandable reasons of wanting to expand someone's scope of practice. A lot of employment opportunities, for instance, like hospitals, they're slowly allowing and opening up roles for EPs. I think that's on the right direction, that the evidence base is heading towards exercise for a multitude of contexts. There is still some positions where a physio qualification might be more beneficial, or at least provide more access to options. One that comes to mind is overseas. So if people are looking to travel to the UK, physio can give you a bit more opportunity. When it comes to some other reasons, like you mentioned, the diagnosis, we've been looking at in a lot of cases, particularly for persisting pain and chronic conditions, the diagnosis, at least for MSK, musculoskeletal rehab, doesn't really provide as much as we thought. So it can give us some prognosis and some information as to whether a scan might be referred. So looking at red flags, the kind of screening of red flags can still be done through upskilling as an EP, even though you don't have the scope of diagnosis and we can't give a specific diagnosis. Our approaches, if we're going off the same evidence base, which we can expand upon, should be roughly the same. So if my mum, she actually has and had, I think I should probably ask her, shoulder pain, and I was like, who do I refer her to? And if I've got like a physio down the road or an EP down the road, I should, if I can, trust the healthcare system, they should probably give roughly equal treatments or approaches, interventions, different flavors, different communication and interaction styles. But if they're vastly different, then I don't know. There's a question in there as to the sources that we're using. And if we're all going off the same evidence base, we should roughly be towards a similar direction, regardless of physio, EP, chiro, or...
Yeah, and I think understanding that exercise, movement, and all of these things are becoming more well-known and more researched, and the evidence base is going towards some of that, and it may change in the next few years as well. We don't know, but I guess exercise physiology as a degree on its own is coming into its own right, and many physios as well I think are diversifying into having active and passive treatments in their toolbox, because they can both be useful as combined or in their own ways. And I think I don't think you need to discredit or discourage people from being an exercise physiologist just straight out, and they shouldn't feel like they need to do something further unless they really want to, which is also okay.
Yeah, absolutely. If they want to go into, say, acute traumatic injury care as a consultancy role in a public healthcare system, I think physio, to be honest, has a lot more opportunities. But if they're looking just for maybe scope of practice, at least they know that there's other options. They don't have to go to physio. I think back in my day, it was like, if you wanted to do EP, there weren't as many roles available in private practice. So you would just find whatever you could in your area that you didn't have to travel more than an hour and a half distance away, and then make the most of that. Or you go into kind of a workers' rehab setting. But nowadays, there's plenty of options, I feel, in private practice. And like Fit Clinic, for example, is an excellent example where there's a lot more opportunities and role models, examples of what EP can look.
Yeah, definitely. Like, we obviously have a broad range of things that we do and see here, but we're an EP first practice. We've got other practitioners that we work with, but it's EP first. And a decade ago, and the reason why I started, and I've said this on previous podcasts, is because I really couldn't find a role that I wanted for myself. So then I had to basically make my own. Obviously, there was a few steps along the way of realizing, it's a bit harder than I thought it was going to be, but here I am. It's too late to turn back, and I probably wouldn't be a very good employee for someone else. So here we are, and a decade down the line, then it's working out well, and I'm quite happy with how it turned out. But the start of it was because I couldn't really find those roles, and it was, go behind a desk and go into OC rehab, or work in a multidisciplinary practice where you weren't seen on par, and even then they were hard to come by, and there weren't too many opportunities, or work in a gym as a personal trainer with some additional skills. And that's how I started Fit Clinic. So I've done all of those, and I think that working as a personal trainer, I did gain an additional set of skills to be able to speak to people, to be able to understand, because although the goals are different for some of these people, how you communicate with a person, the skills are ultimately transferable.
Absolutely. I think this was one of your previous podcasts, you talked about like the personal trainer kind of role, or like the story and the association with it. And there's going through 4 years of university with a massive HECS debt, and being called a personal trainer by a client can like put a dagger to the heart if all the hard work and effort they had over studies, and you just called a lowly personal trainer. But I think that's a few things. It's like underrating the value of coaching and personal training and just exercise. And on the other hand, it's like we can do all that and more. So like, hopefully people can see that there is a very much wide scope, and we can collaborate with all professionals if we're working for, we're all helping people in slightly different ways, but we can all work together rather than kind of stay in our silos.
Yeah, and I've said that before as well, that I wanted to move away from that, but then now I'll probably move towards that. At the end of the day, I don't really care what someone calls me if we're working within our scope of practice, and that's just their understanding of the term, because I don't even know if my family knows what an exercise physiologist is half the time. So someone will just call me what they see me as, but it doesn't mean that they're just speaking in the way that they understand it, and then they're expecting the service that you're going to give them. And if you get them towards their goals that they have set, I don't think it really matters at the end of the day. And when I was growing a business, if it was a difference between someone seeing me or someone going to seek someone else, I was like, well, no, I'm trying to grow and pay the bills and basically feed my family. So yes, I am whatever you just call me. I don't really care, because if I'm the best person for you, call me whatever you want, because it makes a difference whether I can feed my family. So that's why I stopped caring, because it made a difference to the bottom line of being able to feed the family.
Yeah, that's right. And same results, you're the same person, same skills. So yeah, hopefully like listeners can reflect on maybe the stories that we've been told. I know I had my expectations shaped by those around me, and especially my placements. And then afterwards, taking courses, I could expand. Oh, wow, EPs are actually in more places than I thought. I think that's an opportunity to reach out and network and find out the amazing growth opportunities that there can be.
Yeah, so you obviously work to best evidence-based as you can. Like, what does that mean? So I actually think that science-based, evidence-based, things like that is thrown around so much by, even on socials, of people use that word as a buzzword, but there are people that really live that, and then there are people that use it as a marketing tool. Like, how do you make sure that you actually follow that path as a practitioner?
It's a great question. I think that's the question that's missing, is like the definition of terms, because otherwise, you're right. Like, how do you know if it's just a marketing buzzword that they're using to, sell a course? And I speak like conflict of interest here. I help sell courses through the knowledge exchange. So it's important to like unpack what people mean by some of these terms. There's plenty of those, like active versus passive. What does that even mean? But yeah, evidence-based. There's Eric Myra. He's a physical therapist in the States. He's got a great blog, podcast. He was part of the PT Inquest podcast. He's got the evidence-based funnel. So we've shared it on our Facebook group, but if you guys are listening, and I can provide a link later, where
we can pop some things in the notes.
Yes.
So people can click on a couple of our links.
Yeah. I don't know about your experience at uni when you came across evidence-based practice, but the common analogy uses like the three stools, where there's like a separate pillar for evidence, there's a separate pillar for experience or clinical experience, and there's a different one for patient preferences. So you kind of see them on their own, and there's like that visual can separate the concepts. So it's so easy to just reduce decision over like, this is more about patient preferences, or you can be either, evidence-based or like person-centered. And it's a bit confusing. So the funnel helps to visualize that it's actually all kind of in the same bracket, where evidence-based practice doesn't mean we dismiss a clinical experience and we dismiss the person's preferences. It's more so we go off the best available evidence. We also scrutinize it and like criticize it. So it's not like we take it as at face value, but we go off the best available current evidence, then filtering through to our clinical experiences and what we deem is most suitable based on our clinical judgment. And then it goes to the patient preferences. And this is a funnel in terms of the order, not so much in terms of the importance, because all three parts are important. It's like if you had a filter when you're cooking, you wouldn't just, cut off half the filter and use that, because that's a pretty shitty filter. You'd keep all parts of the filter and use it all together. You wouldn't divide the filter into thirds. So that's generally a better way of visualizing that it's all sequential and all parts are just as equal. You don't dismiss one over the other. I think there's a lot of the black or white thinking on social media. So hopefully that is a helpful model.
Yeah, because I think the "it depends" answer doesn't, speak to the algorithm on social media, and that's, I think, why it becomes black and white is if you have this, definitely do this, instead of the real answer is probably depends.
Absolutely.
It doesn't get the clicks.
No, that's another kind of thing that I'm slowly learning and still in the process of learning. But yeah, the message can be misinterpreted so easily when it comes to online short form content.
Yeah, definitely. There's I'm speaking about this is good. Well, does that mean that you hate X? No, it just, I'm talking about this right now. It doesn't mean I am dismissing anything. I've only got a set amount of characters that I can speak about online, and I'm only discussing this. Maybe in part 2 I'll have a chat about that. But, that's where things can become black and white and all or nothing, but the true answer is it depends, and it's somewhere grey.
Always, pretty much. There's a blanket rule. Ironically, it's another blanket rule. But yeah, context and it depends is needed. And that back and forth interaction, I feel, is why podcasts such as these and longer form content is needed.
Yes, I think that you're not going to get rid of the person straight away, even though AI is up and coming. I think that you're going to still need to have the person for at least the foreseeable future, but who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah, so I think sometimes that's a contrast of trying to be an evidence-based practitioner and discharge someone if they're ready for it and see them for a set amount of time. But then other times, trying to say, well, I need to pay the bills and obviously I need to see X amount of clients, because if I'm not, the bills aren't being paid. Like, how do you balance that side of it of discharging people appropriately and then needing to see enough people to pay the bills?
It's another easily, it's such a nuanced and grey and also like a personal topic, because people's literal families are depending on businesses to run, and employees, even if you don't have a family, you need a salary for likely rent to live and eat. So I think if I was to start off with looking at where working under a capitalistic kind of society, we need money, otherwise we die. So within those constraints, I think there can be some ranges to explore. I think there's the first part with healthcare, and this is my idea of healthcare. I think there's the ethical considerations of autonomy, of non-maleficence, like doing no harm. So trying not to fuck people up. I try not to. Sometimes I make a mistake, but at least I'm attempting to not fuck people up. And then doing the best.
If you look at what you said to something, if you ever looked at something you've said to someone 10 years ago and you thought, oh my gosh, hopefully that they've got an updated opinion on that, because I've had that as well. Like, someone said, oh, I can't move my back at all, but it was 15 years ago. And you know what? That person was probably doing their best with the evidence available. And I've probably said something similar in the past. I'm like, but they haven't had anyone to tell them, oh, actually, that's wrong. It's okay, until they came to me 15 years later. So that's another part of it, is like, if you're not looking and saying, oh, maybe I fucked up in the past, and hopefully that person is not still living with that knowledge that I've given them because I've updated it since then.
Absolutely. The embarrassment that I had when I took that time, it was called the biomechanics education, but the knowledge exchanges shoulder course. And I was doing the classic elbow in, like, external rotation for literally everyone with shoulder impingement. And then the same clients would come back and I'd be like, so we don't actually have to do that, rehab exercise that we've been doing for the past 6 weeks. Let's try this instead. But I think that should be like normalized, that we used to do shit like put leeches on people to bleed out the bad blood when they had a disease like 100 years ago or something. So
they had ghosts in their blood.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be part of the process. And I think that also like overlaps with the practice. I think to cover the question of like discharging, I think if we're valuing the person's autonomy and choice, I think if we're doing the best that we can with the available resources that we have, and we're providing the best outcomes for them, and we're actually making it about them, I think business will grow. I think there's a lot of underestimating the power of the long wins, the long-term gains of providing the best possible service. And I personally live off word of mouth. I also respect my own privileges of not having as many overheads working for myself. So I'm very much talking from, I guess, solo practitioner perspective, N=1 experience of there's so much value in word of mouth. If you're providing the best service, people will want to come back and people will refer their friends and family. And that can provide a bit more options and choice so you don't have to, I think the other straw man, the misrepresentation of evidence-based practice is, you only see someone once and then you discharge them. And that's bullshit. That's just as clinician-centered as keeping them 3 times a week for 10 years.
Yeah. So, yeah, everyone's got their own spin on it, and they need to include their own biases. Like, we do things Here, I'm looking at going, look, where I've got bills, I've got 3 kids, things like that. So, one, I want to treat the person as best possible. I also need to make sure the bills are being paid and that everyone's being paid, kids are being fed, things like that. So we've diversified and go, well, we've got 50% of our business is the intake, treat, discharge, third-party model or private health or things like that, that people only want to come to you until they get to a certain point, and then you can discharge them into self-care. And I say that in discharge into self-care because as an exercise physiologist, I would always say, well, yes, you should keep active. Yes, you should keep moving. This is not the end of your journey, because if you don't think that everybody should try to keep moving and try to stay strong and exercise, then what are you doing being an exercise physiologist? But we've also got the other part of the business, which is more of an ongoing. People pay for ongoing coaching, like more similar to personal training, more similar to group sessions, things like that, where people are choosing to pay their own money and they know it's an ongoing service because they're like, look, I'm not going to go to that $20 a week gym for, whatever it is. I want to come and see the exercise physiologist, even though you're not giving me a rehab discharge service, but I'm coming to the groups that I know that if I come in and go, oh, I can't do this, can you help me? Sure, we can definitely help you. But so we've got both models. That is the intake, treat, discharge, and then the one that's like, you know what, people are actually telling me, no, I don't want to leave. I want to come back, because if I do it myself, I won't do it. But I want you to oversee it, and I'll just pay you the money and come in that environment and being part of your gym community, because we've got the general gym side as well as the allied health side, and we've combined both. So that's how I balance it. I go, well, we've got the gym as well as allied health just under the one roof.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's similar business models out there that are doing very similar, like the ongoing exercise for health, for like they've finished, injury rehab, and now it's life. And what do you want to do? What goals do you have? What fitness goals do you have? And then there's that enjoyment of being in the context that you create. There's so much value in that. And to just discharge without providing that extra support. And they're saying, I want to pay you. I want to train with you. I know there's other people out there, or I know I could do this by myself, but I'm choosing your support, your accountability. I think that's what's missing. The patient, the client's voice in this decision. It's not just clinician-centered, I discharge because I am high authority person.
Yeah, and from a business point of view, I need both, because otherwise I can't rely on only one of those two streams. I'm happy that I've combined the streams and I've worked out an approach that works for us, and it's the Fit Clinic way, or my way that I've made the Fit Clinic way, I guess, and given the framework to move forward. But I'm happy with it, and I'm glad it's doing well, and there's both parts of it, and that's how I blend them.
Yeah, it's awesome, and hopefully it's an example for others to see as well.
Yeah, so you had some different experiences coming out, being a new grad, trying to find your path and things like that. Like, what experience do you have for other new grads graduating, how they would find their path and what they should do?
Yeah, so it's reflecting on like the new grad me. I wouldn't do a 2.5 year arts degree for Morehex, so don't do that. I would, first of all, what I found helpful and what other people that I've worked with have also discovered is the value of reaching out. I think social media is an excellent example of you can make these connections, and then you can further those connections and find out that, the person that you reached out on LinkedIn or through an email, or the clinic that you visited a while ago, to when you asked to shadow, they're actually opening up a job role, or they know someone near your area who's opening up. So a lot of the opportunities can arise almost like passively through the continual reaching out and networking, attending courses, and getting involved in the community as best you can. I think there's so much opportunity for new grads to get themselves out there. I think it's like an excuse to, when you're a new grad, just to say, hey, I want to learn what it's like to, I want to learn everything that EPs know out there, and then I want to know what it's like to work in your role. What's it like as an EP? I don't know, something similar, worded much better than I just did. I think there's a lot of, that'd be my number one advice, is just to reach out. There's humans on the other side of the Instagram profile.
Well, all of our staff have come through networking or their previous student placements or things like that, and they're known to us. So that networking, that communication, being part of meeting someone on a course like EP is relatively small, in that you do this for enough years, you end up meeting a lot of people, and you may not know them personally, but you know of their name because they've popped up on socials a bunch of times, and you've communicated, or you've had mutual friends or things like that. along the way. So, you might know of them, and some you might know them personally. And yeah, people want to do business with people they know, like, and trust. So I definitely think there's a lot of value in getting to know people and networking. And when I say doing business, it could just be any form of business or networking. I just mean that broadly, not just paying for service and vice versa.
Yes, absolutely. There's another thing that I also remember now, looking back at all the regrets of my childhood. But no, post uni, I had my own injuries to deal with and kind of pain concerns. So I used that as well as an opportunity for genuine help, to reach out to other professionals. And that was also a way that I could connect and see, oh, this is how people can work. This is how exercise can help with my own injury and pain. And that experience can help me shape, gives me that confidence that I can also help other people. So I think there's huge value in reaching out and having those experiences. Placement is a perfect example as well. Make the most of placement.
Yeah, absolutely. We can tell the difference between people that are really keen, really interested, are going to make good practitioners, and people that are just doing it to tick the box when they're on placement. For a lot of people, and I spoke to other business owners, it's a form of a job interview of sorts, because the ones that are at the top of the tree, like, we don't have opportunities coming up left, right, and center every time. But you remember the ones that you're like, okay, they're currently on my list of people we're going to go back to before we put it out to the wider public. And we look through the list to see if we can find someone before that happens, or that are obviously available and looking. So there's a few boxes that we need to tick on our end, and that it comes together. But we absolutely look at that
And
first.
On that note, I'm not even hiring anyone, but the way that I kind of filter my referrals is through social media or through my own network. So I find out through the people that I've reached out to. So if there's a third-hand kind of connection, I find out, and that's how I can pass on business and pass on clients and referrals. So I think that's also the other benefit of reaching out. You get referrals.
Yeah, absolutely. It can definitely work out both ways. And if someone's reaching out trying to find out information and to grow themselves and to network, they obviously want to provide value back. It's not just about take, because everyone's busy. So they want to be able to provide value to the conversation or value to the experience as well. It needs to work both ways.
Yes, absolutely.
So the advice for new grads is really network, do things like that. But what do you know now that you wish you knew when you started in business? Obviously, solo practitioner. What do you know now that you wish you knew before you started?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the biggest thing was there was like a massive hurdle I made, even more massive in my mind, of starting. So there's that, how the hell do I start? There's so many risks involved.
Just start.
It sounds so simple, but I think that and the question that I would have liked, looking back, that I wish I asked myself was, what if I had everything I needed right now to start? And I think that would have opened up my awareness of all the resources, all the networking that I had, and the tools, and then help me make the steps to be more secure. So I wasn't going to just go out and quit everything and go out with 0 clients and try and find everyone and be really desperate. But if I could make those small steps and just look at the resources that I had, I think that's what I wish I did sooner. Because it's definitely possible. I'm still under a roof and feeding myself. No family yet, but feeding myself. So I think that would be the number one thing that I wish I knew.
Look, obviously, I've got some family, but it's grown as the business has grown. But I guarantee that every time it's like, oh, there's another child on the way, or there's 2 at once this time, well, shit, I better get shit done. So it basically gave me a kick up the ass. I think we grow into the people that we need to be at the time. I remember thinking, one child's super hard, and then I had 3 all of a sudden. I was like, 1 wasn't that bad. And it's same thing in areas of business. When you look back, you're like, oh, it's not too bad, but it's always, some things in your life are always going to be difficult, but you end up growing into the person that you need to be to get shit done. That's what I think sometimes.
Absolutely. And
so you don't have to be perfect to start, because if you're waiting for it to be perfect, it never will be. And COVID was the example for us, is we had to go online. We didn't have it done, and we had no choice, obviously, to keep the doors open or keep them closed, but then open them once we were able to. And we just ended up being a week ahead of the clients. And then we're like, we don't have this done, but we need to provide a level of service that the clients are happy with and they're feeling value from, that they are willing to pay for us to operate. So we're just like, look, we just need to be a few days ahead of their timeline before we start giving it to them, because we had no other choice. But when I started out, I wanted everything to be perfect. And it was, to be honest, it was probably because I didn't want to have those uncomfortable moments or conversations, like knocking on a door and actually doing the networking or going to a place that you don't know, visiting that doctor, doing whatever. That's the uncomfortable shit that nobody really wants to do. And I didn't want to do it. I was like, oh, this is better just getting my website all perfect before I get it out. And I was like, you know what? No one, today's world, no one really, like, a website provides some level of legitimacy, but I don't think it's a big the end all. People will probably search you on Insta, TikTok, Facebook, whatever their preferred platform is. They'll even just look at your Google profile first. And so I don't even think a website is totally necessary other than providing another layer of legitimacy. But yeah, so don't worry about doing the little things. Just get out and start, get a minimum viable product and learn along the way, because if you make it perfect, I guarantee when you start, you realize it's not perfect because the real world makes things change.
Yeah. That's probably, if you think that you have to have a perfect plan, that doesn't give you as much space to adapt, because then shit happens, like, global pandemic of all examples, you have to adapt on the spot. So I think that's a good point. Just finding the small steps to start and breaking down the big hurdles that you might have into little achievable steps.
Yeah, absolutely. So before everybody has successes, they have some failures. Do you mind sharing anything that you've failed at that turned into a success?
Yeah. I think there's so many, like, kind of clinical stories that I used to fuse to and have my kind of, protocol-based rehab. So there's, like, clinical practice-wise, I was doing all ironically, the myths that I debunk on my page and on socials now. That was, like, pretty much all me back in the day. There's probably the biggest failure from a business perspective is not asking for help. So I would kind of try and do it on my own. And I think sometimes it's okay to figure things out, but just reaching out and asking other people who've had the experience and being okay with, like, it's a bit vulnerable to ask for help when you need it. But that just, like, gives you that head start. Like, you skip all the steps and you learn from other people's mistakes, so you don't have to commit them yourself.
It's a lot less expensive that way to learn from other people's mistakes. I've done both.
Yes.
And trial and error is much more expensive than learning from others' mistakes.
That's it. Yeah. So there's so much value in colleagues and role models. So if you see other people doing the business that you want to do, and, like, running a place, a clinic, a gym space, I think finding ways to connect with them. There's so many free resources out there that a lot of people put out. So starting there and then building up and investing in that, because that will give you that return through time. So you don't have to lose all the time in making all the mistakes and losing, potential clients and losing potential gains just by reaching out and asking for help.
Yeah, absolutely. Great advice. And it's probably the perfect time to say that, I'm happy for people to reach out to me in the area of EP business and we can have that conversation. Obviously, you've got the knowledge exchange as well, which you're exchanging knowledge around, and you've got some courses there, mostly clinical, are they?
Yes. So we've got a new one actually coming up this year, how to decode research. Funnily enough, we talked about evidence-based practice and it can appear a bit of a buzzword. And to be honest, a lot of the research can appear like jargon. So we kind of make it as systemized and as easy as possible to read. So we've got that one coming up, and we've got a few other clinical practice courses. So all on our website at tkex.org. And for anyone on Facebook, check out the Knowledge Exchange discussion group. We post up some studies and some snippets. So that would be the top two places.
Yeah, great. So I'll pop some of those in the show notes as well, so people can go to those links, update the clinical knowledge. And then, if anyone wants to reach out in regards to the EP side of business, I'm happy to have that conversation and go from there. But what do you think the underrated tools are for you, for you to be able to operate as an EP? What are things that are indispensable for you?
I don't like calling people tools. I was going to say, like, my resources and my network.
I've been called worse. That's fine.
I would say so recently, over the last maybe 3 years or I've been looking into ACT, or acceptance and commitment therapy, and the frameworks that they use make a lot of the clinical decisions so much easier. So the biggest one for people to look up, there's a great YouTube video by Russ Harris. He's an author of The Happiness Trap and an ACT clinician and educator and psychotherapist. He puts out a lot of content, and this one particularly it's called The Choice Point. So it's a clinical framework to help goal setting. It helps with clinical decision making, and it even helps with ourselves. So I don't know if you've found like a lot of the tools, the communication skills that we use with clients and in practice, we can actually use with ourselves and with colleagues and with like family and friends. So I think that would be by far the biggest value that I would say as a practical framework.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome information. So if you could pick the wisdom, someone dead or alive, who would it?
I've had to think about this one. I think there's a lot of people that I am very lucky to already pick their brains as being in the education space and keeping myself accountable to stay up to date. So I'm going to go a little bit different outside of the EP world. And there's two names that come to mind. One is Anthony Magnabosco. He is head of street epistemology. So it's basically started off going around. He's got a YouTube channel asking people some questions to dive into how they got to their beliefs. So I guess I'm really curious to find out back from my psychology days of why people believe what they believe. So the videos that he has and the tools and the framework that he has it's number one, entertaining. And number two, super useful for myself to be like, oh, how do I actually know that? Like, how do I know that exercise helps with pain, and what sources do I use? And really helps like dive into the methods that we use to come to our beliefs. So he would be my number one. I'd be number one fanboy for him. Number two would be another YouTuber called Abigail Thorne. She runs Philosophy Tube. So diving into a lot of the longer form content on topics like justice and like ethics and like so many like things that I know jack shit about. She just makes it digestible and relevant. So I think those would be my top two. I think it's easy to get stuck in the clinical own role model. So I'm expanding, slowly learning a little bit more and being very humbled at how little I actually know and how much knowledge and wisdom there is to learn out there.
Yeah, I think you can definitely get stuck in the clinical mode in your own space. Like most of the podcasts that I listen to aren't EP related. They're all they're broad and might just be stories, autobiographies, or someone else's experience, a different area of business, things like that, because the stories are relatable and you can just pick and choose parts of their stories that relate to you and that you can take some knowledge from. So it doesn't matter if it's a totally different area to what you've grown up in, what you've studied, you can still find some relevance.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, where can people find you online?
Yeah, so if they are on Instagram or Facebook would be my top two. Just search up Arbilla Exercise Physiology. If they want to look at some really cringy dance videos, so that's my other hobby, talking about things outside of EP, it's the dancing exercise. If any physiotherapist is offended, let me know, send me a DM. I'm not calling myself a physiotherapist, just letting them know. But to be honest, physiologist, too many like letters to add to a username.
Yeah, I don't even know if the Instagram username allows that. Yeah, so you still put up some of your popping and locking videos online, just on its own channel, not on your EP channel?
Yeah, trying to keep them a little bit separate, though there's overlap. Like, movement is movement.
Yeah, that's your niche. That's fine. So, great way to end. Thanks for jumping on, having a bit of a chat. It was great.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you for the opportunity, and hopefully it was helpful. I'm keen for your future episodes as well. I'm an avid listener.
So, awesome. Thanks, Daniel. You've just listened to another episode of XPhys Biz. If you've got some value out of the content, make sure that you like, share, follow, or subscribe. Until next time.